Welcome back to the Badger247 show, part of the 247 Sports Network. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger247.com writers John McNamara and Nick Osen. It is so great to see you guys as always in our new little Friday tradition. I'm really enjoying these Friday morning catch-ups because we get to talk about the games, we get to talk about high school ball, we get to talk about recruiting, and we're going to be covering all of those here today. But obviously, we are going to start with the biggest thing going around the Wisconsin Badgers program right now, and that is Danny O'Neil stepping in as QB1 for the game against Middle Tennessee State this weekend. There's a lot of questions, but I think there's also a little bit of confidence having him kind of know he's going to be the guy since, last Thursday night when Billy Edwards Jr. got injured. He's been taking all the reps with the ones this week, we know, in practice. So, John, I'm going to start with you here. What do you expect to see from the new quarterback here this weekend against MTSU?
Yeah, that's the question I think I put in our three burning questions this week is, what does the offense look like? How much is it different? What do they add? What do they take out? I think, you would agree, and Nick would likely agree that, he's not like a clone of Billy Edwards, right? He brings something a little bit different. I think he brings an element with his feet. So those are, I don't have a great answer for you. I think we got, 50 snaps of Danny O'Neil, but you went into that game planning like Billy Edwards was going to be your guy throughout. So those, the tweaks and what Jeff Grimes ultimately decides to do, I think is going to be something I'm certainly looking to see. And I think Wisconsin fans are largely looking to see what that looks like. But, week 2, I think they're going to look to pound the football, to move the football there. So that's not going to change. But the little intricacies and how that could look different is, I think, something I'm certainly curious about going into Middle Tennessee State here.
Yeah, Nick, I think that one of the things that we saw Danny O'Neil bring was a little bit more explosive plays with his legs. Last week, he made a couple, key runs, even some designed runs for him. Now, the thing that I'm worried about a little bit is if he keeps running like that, Wisconsin's pretty thin behind him, and he's not the biggest guy. So I guess from a game plan perspective, John mentioned they're going to probably try to run the ball a lot. How much do you think they'll be using his legs as a weapon, given that MTSU, had a pretty rough start to their season, losing to FCS Austin Peay, who is not exactly great shakes, living here in Middle Tennessee. I know a fair bit about both of these teams. My goddaughter is a junior at MTSU, and she's embarrassed by the football program. So, I'm just kind of curious to see, for myself at least, what the offense looks like and how much they're going to try to use him as a runner. What are your thoughts here, Nick?
Yeah, Perko, I think you guys hit it right on the head that he's a great runner, arguably really, really good. He's fast, mobile, obviously athletic, but I know we were just talking pre-show. If he's going to do that, he can't be taking some of the hits that we actually just saw him take. I think it was like the third quarter or so, going kind of toward the student section on a play. And he took a pretty good hit from a couple guys on the near sideline. And he's tough. I've said since, spring, I really like Danny O'Neil, but you can't risk, losing another guy right now, especially with some of the games coming up. So while I think it would be, silly not to use that a little bit, I think there'll be some design stuff. I think he's got to try to get outside or slide a little bit. And one thing I'm also kind of looking for, guys, from him is you saw early on with Billy Edwards Jr. that Grimes schemed up a couple really good-looking deep shots, a couple go balls. One was to Anthony. I want to say one was to Ballard, and they just missed. And I'd love to see a little bit of that. Agreed with Mac that we're probably going to see a heavy dose of the run game too.
And I think going along with that, John, there, is a potential for maybe a little bit of reshuffling along the offensive line. Davis Heinzen really struggled in his first appearance in a Wisconsin uniform last week against Miami of Ohio. He was really beat by the speed rush, and so I think a lot of people are wondering if they're going to roll out that same offensive line unit that they started with last week, or if we'll see some potential movement around there. John, what are you hearing?
Yeah, I think Luke Fickell used the words opportunities at different spots. So I don't know if that's not directly correlated to left tackle. I think that's the spot I think most people have their eyes on. If you're into trying to get something out of a picture, Wisconsin posted something where I think you could, if you wanted to, let yourself believe that Riley Mahlman will open up at left tackle there. I text Nick and I would, be kind of honest with you guys. That's something that you do hear, right? And I told Nick, like, hey, man, I'm hearing this. And Nick said maybe something similar, but I'm not going to go out and report that. So I think that you could see a few different things. I think giving Davis Heinzen some opportunity to clean up from week 1 to week 2 is on the table, right? I don't think that you shut a guy down after his first game and at this level of competition. So I think a lot of stuff is on the table, but this is a nice week to allow you to work through some things likely, but you have Alabama in 8 days. So that is looming large as well. And with this, look, you say what you want about Alabama, state of the program, DeBoyer, whatever. They're going to put some athletes out on the field, specifically on the edge. And I don't think it's a stretch, Nick, to say that Davis Heinzen has struggled with speed. It happened in fall camp. We saw it on Thursday night, and I think they're going to work to try to adjust that problem because you don't have the luxury of, well, let's wait till week 4 or 5 or 6 when things really get serious. Things get serious real soon here for Wisconsin.
No, I think that's really well said, Mac. I think Heinzen, I got to speak with him right after he committed. Great kid. Like, it was super excited, an opportunity. He went out there, and how I said it on another radio spot earlier today, I just think the game moves a little bit fast for him at this level, at least what we saw in that game. And, obviously, certainly some of camp. I think speed was something that was successful for the pass rush. I agree, Mac. I don't think he should be shut down, whether it's, maybe he's just more that swing guy now, right? That 6th spot or so, 7th, when guys need a breather or somebody's a little dinged up, somebody needs to step up there. But, overall, I like your point on Mahlman. I also feel like this is a spot no matter what is shifted, because I think we've done a nice job of alluding to things without, formally reporting. I would think if he's healthy, Kerry Kadenko has a larger role this week. I wouldn't be shocked if you maybe see a guy like Mandel kicked out and then Kadenko stepping up and playing a guard spot. I'm just getting the sense, and I know this is something we had some good discussion on, Mac. I don't think Brunner is necessarily going to be kicked out there. I mean, it's possible, but just based on what I had seen with my own eyes and the picture and just how good he is at guard, obviously Renfro's locked in at center, but it'll be really intriguing. I think you said it so well. This can be a week where you would think you can switch some things up a little bit, but next week is not one of those weeks. So you need to kind of have something pretty set in stone moving on, because though Alabama did not look impressive week 1, I do think DeBoer is still a really good coach, and the 4 and 5 star talent's there. So you'd think that they can clean some things up here in the next couple of weeks too.
Yeah, I think Kadenko's likely your next up, right? Is probably at all 3 of those interior spots. I don't think he's a guy that can play tackle. So if you're working to get your best 5 on the field, he's likely in that equation. Likely moves Mandel to right tackle. I mean, it's a lot of movement, but you saw him take some of those reps as a true freshman, right, Nick? Where he's repped at right tackle. I'm talking about Mandel here. So, like I said, that's a lot of moving parts there. But if you feel like that's going to get your best 5 on the field, that might be the solution there. Heinzen to me is a guard. I think Central Michigan kind of thought that same way last year, but injury forced them to make a move there. So he's, to me, he's a good run blocker. He can get what's in front of him, but I think he does struggle, being out there on an island at times with guys who are faster than him. But that's not going to change, right? I mean, it's not going to say, well, you get to a point in the schedule where just guys are slower. You don't have that luxury this year. You don't have that luxury most years, right? But look, it's a long season. So, look, Davis Heinzen is a guy that you might need midway through. He may be a guy that you need on Saturday. So I'm curious to see how that all unfolds, what it looks like. I'm curious to see what Mahlman looks like at left tackle if that were to be the position he lines up at.
Yes, sir.
Well, going along with some of those changes, obviously Wisconsin's depth chart this week, it looks identical to last week, but that doesn't mean the same guys will be getting the same amount of run. Who is a player for each of you that you expect to see more this week running with the ones? I'll start with you, Nick.
Yeah, I think that this player was running with the ones, but maybe didn't make the impact that I thought, that a lot of people thought. I'd probably say tight end Lance Mason. He got a couple of looks. I know one was a really well-designed, looked like tight end kind of bubble screen. And the throw was it was a little bit low. He couldn't come up with it. And obviously that could have been at least 15, 20 yards. I'm looking for a little bit more from him. And then I'll also just say, Perko, this is not, because they weren't with the ones, because they were. I think it all goes along with kind of the game script, the O-line. But I'm just looking to see a bunch, man, from the running backs. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if you're seeing 200 plus rushing yards and a couple guys getting in the end zone personally.
How about you, John?
Yeah, go to the other side of the ball. I think Aaron Witt had one snap week one. I don't know if that was what it was related to. Was it, the offense that they were going against? Was he nicked up? I don't want to say it was either one way or the other, but that kind of surprised me. Maybe a bit more from him. Maybe a bit more from a guy like Corey Walker, who seemed to be a little quiet from the kind of the same. We don't know exactly what's going on. We don't know exactly what the game plan was. We don't know, reason X, the reason why it was it like that. So maybe a bit more from them. I do think that Middle Tennessee State likely wants to do a little bit more through the air when the stuff that I was kind of gathering on them through the summer, and you look at what they did against Austin Peay. So, maybe it's not a game for those guys as well. But when I was looking through, the snaps from week one, I think those two kind of stood out, and maybe a little bit more increased workload heading into week two. Now, that said, for a team that maybe wants to get it done through the air, does Nick Clayton see the field a little bit more than he saw week one? I think he's a guy where it's third and long. Put Clayton on the field and say, hey, go get the quarterback. Let's see what that looks like. So defense was really, really solid week one. I think that's going to carry over, but maybe we see those snap counts adjust just a bit going into week two here.
Yeah, my one guy to look out for is Matt Young, the safety, especially if they're going to go through the air. I could see some more usage of three safety sets with Brown, Zachman, and Young. I think that he is someone who is a playmaker and really could be a difference maker on this team. But they are pretty deep at safety with two really veteran guys in the starting role. But like you guys mentioned, MTSU wants to air it out. And so I think we may see more three safety sets, 6 DB sets, that kind of thing. The game also this weekend at Camp Randall Stadium will host a litany of visitors, a litany of recruits coming up to Madison. Nick, who are a couple guys to keep an eye out for that, have some, important visits here for the Badgers?
Yeah, Perko, I appreciate it. I'll take a few and pass a few to Mac as well. Two that I'm really intrigued, already kind of set up, some calls to catch up with. The Mallinger twins. I think that when you get an in-state offer, oftentimes Badgers are a perceived favorite, and I believe them to be the case. But what I've been saying and reporting is, I think if Reese picks up that Wisconsin offer, I feel even better and more likely, I think John would probably agree too, that they end up in Madison because they've said all the right things. But sometimes twins don't say, I'm just going to go where my brother plays. And they haven't, but I just think they actually play off each other well. They're very close. They seem to be best friends off the field as well, as is often expected. So I think that'd be one to watch, guys, depending on, how that kind of comes to fruition. Isaac Miller, another guy that, Mac got out to see, my man, and that I look forward to seeing at some point later this season. Want to catch up with him because he's gone from, a potential guy to watch throughout the Midwest to fully blown up recruitment. So that's a big deal. And then I'll throw another name, not a Wisconsin guy, an intriguing safety out, I think, Omaha, Wyatt Liebentritt. I think he just has one offer, but it's from a heck of a program, Penn State, and his interests are picking up. Wisconsin, Iowa, Iowa State, Nebraska, Kansas State. So that's a young man. I'm curious to see if Badgers kind of pull the trigger on an offer there or maybe just continue to show some interest. But out of the 9 or 10, that we reported. Those are 4 or 5 I'm really watching, guys.
I'd probably, Nick did a nice job of covering some of those guys. Brian DeMoss is another kid that's scheduled to be there. Edge guy, give you some Mikhail Blade vibes in terms of, position, where he feels like with Wisconsin. Maybe he doesn't hit that level, that elite level that Blade hit, but someone I know that, Nick has spoke to a few times, I've had a chance to speak to. I think Wisconsin's in a great spot early on. They've prioritized him. He's been on campus a few times. I think for the spring showcase he was there, if I'm remembering correctly. But certainly a guy, you look at that edge position in 26, still I think work in progress. But, if you get a guy like him 27, again, still obviously very early there. But Wisconsin's done a really, really nice job. Matt Mitchell leading the way, EJ Whitlow involved as well. He would be, I think, one of the top overall targets, regardless of position in that 27 class. And they'll get him up there on Saturday to show him everything again.
Let's talk a little bit more 26, because there are some positions that still need filling, especially on the edge. I want each of you guys to give me one name for folks to kind of keep an eye on here this fall that you think the Badgers will be targeting to round out this class of 26. And Nick, I'll throw it back to you again first.
Yeah, I think, Perko, it's a spot that they're really still evaluating, to be quite honest. Not holding too much back from our general public here. Maybe I'd go a touch deeper on our site for the VIPs, but I checked in pretty recently. I think that's a spot. You're going to get another name or two here soon, but I think whether you consider him a D-line or edge, I think Wisconsin's feeling a little bit better about DJ Ba, D2 Ba. I think it's looking pretty encouraging there. So not, kind of the level of concern. And I just want to add, Perko, to kind of answer that and also jump off Mac. Of course, I expect them to get at least one at that position. But I also want to say Isaac Miller, like we talked about, and then Keyshawn Taylor, who I saw recently. There are like several Midwest edge names that I always like how Mac phrases that. I feel Wisconsin is in a pretty good spot right now. So that's why I feel like I've written it about edge as well as O-line. We all have. There's some spots that maybe you just don't dive as deep to finish out 26, and then you take 2 or 3 in 27, and O-line 4 or 5 compared to 2. So just wanted to add a little bit there. We'll definitely have some more for you in the next couple of weeks, though.
Yeah, I think that edge position is the one to really watch here to round out 26, because especially after the decommitment of Carmelo Reed, it's definitely, I think that was a pretty decent blow to this recruiting class. Obviously, safety is kind of another position where I know that they are looking to probably at least add one more body after another decommitment there. But, talking recruiting, you guys are out on the recruiting trail in some way, shape, or form, going to visit high school prospects this weekend. John, you're back seeing Germantown again. Cole Ryder, obviously a huge target for the Badgers. What do you want to see out of him this weekend? And sort of what are your thoughts on his recruitment at the moment?
Yeah, I've had a chance to be around Cole a little bit, kind of in that Cooper Catalano recruitment. So, I've been to a handful of Germantown games, but, Catalano was my primary focus. So get a chance tonight to really hone in on Cole Ryder. And obviously he's emerged as one of the top, players in the Midwest, right? And, you got to feel really good. I think Nick and I both have crystal balls in for him. The guy's going to be up at Wisconsin 5 times. Nothing set in stone, but that's certainly a good sign for the staff to, even before the season kicks off, to say, hey, we're going to get this dude up here 5 times. Ohio State's there, right? So that's certainly one that, you got to give a long look at. And I know that Cole is, but looking forward to seeing him tonight as kind of that focal guy for Germantown. And like I said, one of the top offensive tackles in the country. So we'll kind of, the state has produced some really, really good offensive linemen over the last 20 years, and getting out a chance to see a lot of these in-state kids, probably just about all of them, who have wound up at a high level Power 4. So I'd like to see not only how he stacks up just eyeball test right away, but historically what he kind of looks like with some of the better offensive linemen that I've been able to see. So I'm excited about this one tonight. I know he's been well covered by Nick and, just a lot of other people. A lot of people have been writing about him lately. So hopefully I can provide kind of some unique coverage for our readers either Saturday or Sunday from some breakdown stuff there.
And Nick, you're heading down to your home state of Illinois to watch some quarterback play.
Yeah, I love, Max leading. I'm truly excited to see if what he gets there from Cole. Obviously, we've been out there a couple of times. And for myself, Perko, early drive, I was up a little earlier, getting the great content out. I'm going to be hitting the road around 2-ish because not only a longer drive, guys, but also an early game. 6 o'clock tonight. Mac, the legend, Alan True will also be there with me. So excited to see him, seeing top 5 quarterback, 4-star Israel Abrams of Montini Catholic. We'll be watching them at Hillcrest High School in Country Club Hills, Illinois. So should be interesting. Looking to get a scouting report there as well as obviously follow up with him. We reported he'll be visiting here soon. But I've known about him for a long time with just some of the other Midwest schools involved. And even though, his rating, it's like pretty Midwest focused from what I understand so far. Wisconsin, Iowa State is deep in there. Minnesota, I think, and Purdue he just visited too. So maybe a Big Ten battle long term. Really nice kid. It'll be intriguing to see not only what he thinks, but also excited to watch a top 5 guy at any position play, right?
Absolutely. You got to be. John, in the rest of the state of Wisconsin this weekend, what other games are you sort of most interested going to be keeping an eye on while you are scouting Cole?
Yeah, not as many high-end games as we had week 1, right? I think we said kind of the same thing about week 2, and I feel a little bad about this pick because I think we talked about probably both teams last week, but Franklin Case, this is a really good game tonight. Likely the 2 best teams in the Southeast Conference. And again, I feel a little bit bad because I think we talked about them last week too. I want to spread the love a little bit, but glancing up and down the list, I didn't see a ton that stood out to me. I do like St. Joe's versus Racine Lutheran. That's a nice battle, a little bit lower level, not lower level, right? They're not D1 schools, right? But both of those teams have some good football players. I know the Lutherans got that Bryce Austin, who's been up to Wisconsin a few times. St. Joe's, man, I mean, the athletic department's doing well at St. Joe's. They're winning titles in a lot of different states, showing up in Camp Randall or the Cole Center. Zach Rizzo's their starting quarterback. He's a really good quarterback, receiving some college interest there. Also a good baseball player as well. Plays for that hitters program down in the south side or the south part of the state of Wisconsin. So that's a nice little battle if you're down in that part of the state. Keep an eye on that one as well.
Absolutely. Well, make sure that you keep an eye out for Badger247 coverage because these guys in Payne are, taking care of everything.
And I just want to tease something real quick, guys. Hopefully many of the great listeners that you guys have had over the years are joining us. I will say I'm not one to, hype or overhype. I've kind of kept this on the low and I'm going to continue for a few more days, but special Friday Night Lights coverage coming next week. And a lot of it will be, VIP on the site. So I'm hoping, folks, that you're ready for it.
Well, that means everyone who's tuning in here needs to subscribe to Badger247.com for that exclusive coverage that you are going to get of recruits, insights into the team, and so much more. We appreciate everyone tuning in here to the Badger247 show. Like we said, subscribe to Badger247.com. Subscribe to this channel. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you want to hear about. We will be around. You can always find us lurking over there at Badger247.com. And until next time, we'll see you on the message boards.